The battlefield along the Danube was still echoing with the sounds of victory when a new crisis struck the Hungarian camp. John Hunyadi, the commander whose daring river assault had shattered the Ottoman blockade, suddenly collapsed from severe illness. The triumph that had reopened vital supply routes now seemed overshadowed by the possible loss of the very leader who had made it possible. Witnesses inside the fortress described the scene as tense and uncertain. Soldiers who had cheered Hunyadi's bold strategy only hours earlier now watched anxiously as physicians rushed to his side. Exhaustion from weeks of relentless fighting, sleepless nights, and the strain of command had taken a heavy toll. Fever gripped the general, leaving him weak and barely able to stand. For the defenders of Belgrade, Hunyadi was more than a commander. He was a symbol of resistance. His sudden illness spread fear through the ranks. Rumors quickly circulated that the Ottomans, aware of his condition, were preparing a massive final assault. The possibility of facing such an attack without their leader threatened to shake morale at the worst possible moment. Inside his quarters, Hunyadi fought a battle as fierce as any on the field. Contemporary accounts describe him drifting in and out of consciousness while advisors debated how to proceed. Some urged him to rest completely and transfer command to other officers. But Hunyadi understood the stakes. The Ottoman army remained vast and determined, and the siege was far from over. Despite his weakened state, he insisted on being briefed about every development. Messengers moved constantly between the walls and his chamber, reporting troop movements, supply levels, and enemy activity. Even from his sickbed, Hunyadi continued issuing orders, his voice faint but resolute. Those close to him later recalled that his determination inspired renewed confidence among the defenders. Outside the fortress, the Ottoman forces regrouped after their setback on the river. The burning ships and shattered blockade had dealt a blow to their plans, but their commanders were not ready to abandon the campaign. Engineers worked to repair siege equipment, while fresh troops were brought forward. Scouts monitored the fortress closely, searching for signs of weakness. Within Belgrade, preparations intensified. Knowing that a decisive confrontation was approaching, officers reinforced defensive positions and rationed supplies carefully. Volunteers joined the effort, carrying stones, water, and ammunition to the walls. The entire garrison operated under the assumption that the next attack would be the most brutal yet. Hunyadi's illness added urgency to every decision. Physicians applied the limited medical knowledge of the time, using herbal remedies and strict rest in an attempt to stabilize his condition. Gradually, the fever began to subside. Though still frail, he regained enough strength to sit upright and consult directly with his commanders. His first appearance outside his chamber, brief as it was, had a powerful effect. Supported by aides, Hunyadi addressed a small gathering of officers. He warned them that the Ottomans would soon launch a full-scale assault and emphasized the importance of unity and discipline. His words, delivered with visible effort, reinforced the sense that the coming battle would determine the fate of the fortress. Reports from the walls confirmed his fears. Ottoman troop concentrations were increasing, and artillery positions were being adjusted for a sustained bombardment. Drums and signals echoed across the enemy camp, signaling coordinated preparations. The defenders braced themselves for what many believed would be the final test of their endurance. Hunyadi, refusing to remain idle, resumed partial command despite the objections of his physicians. He reviewed defensive plans, inspected fortifications from a distance, and ensured that reserves were positioned to respond quickly to breaches. Every action was measured to conserve his limited strength, yet his presence alone served as a rallying point. As dawn approached on the anticipated day of assault, tension gripped both camps. The air was thick with smoke from cooking fires and the distant rumble of artillery. Soldiers stood ready at their posts, gripping weapons worn from weeks of combat. Many glanced toward the fortress interior, reassured by the knowledge that their commander was still guiding them. When the Ottoman attack finally began, it came with overwhelming force. Waves of troops advanced under covering fire, attempting to exploit any weakness in the defenses. The clash that followed was fierce and chaotic. Arrows darkened the sky, cannons thundered, and the walls shook under repeated impacts. From a protected vantage point, Hunyadi directed the response. Messengers relayed his commands across the battlefield, coordinating counterattacks and reinforcing threatened sectors. Though visibly weakened, he remained focused, analyzing each development with the experience of a seasoned strategist. The defenders fought with renewed determination. Inspired by Hunyadi's resilience, they repelled assault after assault. Close-quarters combat erupted along the walls as attackers attempted to scale ladders and breach gates. Each successful defense fueled the belief that victory, however costly, was still within reach. Hours of relentless fighting followed. Casualties mounted on both sides, and the outcome hung in the balance. Yet the fortress held. By the time the Ottoman forces began to withdraw and regroup, the defenders had once again survived the storm. Hunyadi's condition worsened after the battle, the strain of command aggravating his illness. Nevertheless, his decision to continue leading during the crisis proved pivotal. Military historians later credited his perseverance with maintaining cohesion at a moment when uncertainty could have led to collapse. Inside Belgrade, the aftermath was marked by exhaustion and grim determination. The defenders knew the siege was not yet over, but they had demonstrated their capacity to withstand even the fiercest assaults. Hunyadi's struggle through illness became a powerful symbol of sacrifice and leadership. As the sun set over the battered fortress, a fragile sense of hope emerged. The river flowed past the scarred walls, carrying with it the echoes of battle and the promise of survival. For the men and women inside Belgrade, their commander's recovery, however partial, was a reminder that resilience could turn the tide of history. In the days that followed, preparations continued under Hunyadi's guidance. Every repaired wall, every sharpened blade, and every renewed oath of loyalty reflected a shared understanding. The final chapter of the siege was approaching, and at its center stood a commander who had fought not only an invading army, but his own failing body to keep the defense alive.